Tell me about your first job at Duke. I didn't know you ever worked at Duke.
Oh, well, Dr. Penfield, with whom I worked at McGill, knew Daddy Davidson, who was big gun at Duke. They had been in medical school together.
Davidson Building named after him?
Yeah. So he wrote to Daddy, everybody called him Daddy, and said that I was coming down, that I was a first-rate secretary, and if anyone needed me at the medical center, let him know. And I had a job before I came as secretary to the head of the neuropsychiatric department, Dr. Richard Lyman. And I can't say this on camera exactly right, but I think Dr. Lyman needed help as much as I did. He was different, like a lot of psychoanalysts maybe. And I can still see his white coat. He would walk down the hall so fast dictating to me, and I was running with a pencil. This coat would just kind of fly behind him. And I said that once to a friend whose husband just retired from that department. I was an intern then. And he said he remembered that too. He remembered Dr. Lyman's coat flying behind him. And I made $90 a month. And my husband made $50 a month as an intern. And I was careful not to tell how much I made because I made more than he did, which was all right. But we got by fine. We moved in with Dorothy and Charles, who had a nice-sized house about a block away from Watts Hospital. And we stayed with them. We got there in July, 1st of July, and in that December, along came Pearl Harbor Day. We were up one Sunday morning listening to the opera, and all of a sudden they cut in. And Charles said, "Oh my God, did you hear the news? The Japanese have bombed Pearl Harbor." And we couldn't believe it. Immediately, Duke started getting together a medical team to go over. And your dad volunteered, but he wanted the Navy, and so he got it. And that was in December. In February, we moved to...
So he enlisted in the Navy, wasn't drafted, he enlisted?
He joined up. He was not
drafted.
Well, an enlisted man enlists, but an officer signs up. And he was a Lieutenant JG, junior grade, in the Navy. We were sent to Washington, D.C. for indoctrination, and found a place to live in a one-room, finished basement in a nice big home in Georgetown. It was really nice. And he'd go to work every day, and I'd sit and play solitaire and do jigsaw puzzles and crossword puzzles. I was missing, not working, to tell you the truth. But I found out that I was pregnant with Patty. And the song then, I can remember, "It seems to me that I have heard that song before. The lyrics say forevermore." And every time I hear that song, I think of Washington. Well, your dad worked at the Naval Hospital. And I used to go and pick him up. We had, of course, one car, and he'd leave it with, I'd take him to work in the morning, go pick him up about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. One day when I went, about 5 o'clock, up drove this huge limousine, and out of it came a driver, came around and opened the door, and out stepped President Roosevelt. And they put him in a wheelchair and took him up the steps while I stood by, and he said, "How are you?" And I said, "I'm just fine, thank you. How are you?" And he said, "Just fine," and went on. And that was very exciting to me. We were only there a few months. I'm going to have to think about this because we moved so many times. When we were sent to Pensacola, Florida, and that was just really great. Patty was born there. We lived right on the beach. When we got there, there was nowhere to live, just nowhere. No housing in town. And Brad said, "Well, it's up to you. You find us a place to live," and he went off to work. And so I scouted around and finally found a builder who was building some homes right on the beach, right smack on the beach, on the Gulf. He was building apartments, 4 units, 4 apartments, 2 down and 2 up in each one. And he signed me up, and we had to wait about 2 weeks. So we moved into a Quonset hut. And Patty didn't like it at all. She was, by now, Patty was a baby, and she cried and carried on. But anyway, we got into our own place. And that's where Patty said, "Look at the little wizard," when the lizard climbed up the screen. And we thought that was cute. And her dad had her say it over and over and over and over again.
So how long were you at Pensacola?
About 7 or 8 months.